In this video, I'm going to show you how to use MySQL Workbench to create tables. First, go to the navigation menu on the left-hand side. Make sure that Schemas is selected, and then go to the database that you are going to put the table in, and left-click. In this case, it's the demo one called Learn1 that I've created. Go to the little arrow on the left, then left-click Tables to select it. Then right-click and go Create Table. The first thing I'm going to do is give the table a name in this box here, table name. I'm going to call it Sales. Then I'm going to go down here to Columns. Now you might find that the output section is using up lots of space, so that therefore you've got to kind of move it down. If you can see that if I move it up, the bit I need goes, so I'm going to move it down again. This is the first column that I'm going to call ID. The data type is an integer, which means a whole number. So it isn't 1.1, which would be a decimal point. It's going to have whole numbers in, like 1, 2, 3, 4. This is because this column is going to count the number of rows in the table. So if I want row 2, I'd then go to the ID column to get row 2. Because the ID number is really important, it's called the primary key, and that's why here is checked PK for primary key. Also, it's really important that there's something in it, so it mustn't be null. Null means nothing, empty. So therefore, I put here not null. And actually that happened automatically, as did PK primary key. I'm now going to create the next column, and I'm going to choose to have the next column be a date. And so of course I've got to tell the system that the type of data type there will be a date. So now the first column's ID, the second column is date, the table name is sales, and I'm going to press apply. This now has created the code. I'm going to press apply and finish, and the table is now there. So when I left click on this little arrow, or I could use the refresh button here, icon, sorry, then that creates the table. Then I'm going to press this little icon here, and then I can see inside the table. So here you can see the first column's ID and the second column is date. Now inside there's no rows. You can see null and null. That's because we've created the table, but we haven't actually put any data in it yet. This is a summary you might find useful. Please pause the video if you would like to read it. It's a good idea to learn the code behind this. It'll help you to understand MySQL. You won't get it first time, and each time you look, you'll learn more and more and more. But as we do more and more code together, you will understand it, and then you'll see it's quite simple. Please don't give up. You can do this. To do it in code, all I need is a query tab. So I'm going to go to File and New Query tab. I'm then going to put the code in here, and then I'm going to go to this little yellow lightning flash, which will submit the code. Finally, I'm going to do this little refresh icon in the navigator section, and you can now see there is the table. Just to show you, I'm going to go to the icon here on the right of it, open it up, and now you can see ID and date columns. Job done. I've created this table to make it really easy to understand the code. On the left-hand side is the code, and on the right-hand side is the explanation. Each row is a row in the code. Let's start. The first row is to create a table in a database called Learn1, and that table will be called Sales. Please note it says the database first, and then it says the table inside that database. The next row is for creating the first column. That column is going to be called ID. In there is going to be an integer, which just means a whole number, not something with a decimal point like 1.1, a whole number like 1. And it must not be null. There has to be something inside there. It can't be empty. The next column is going to be the date. Inside there will be the type of data called date. And the default is null, so it can be empty, that's no problem. Finally, the last row is to say which column is the primary key. The primary key is the one we put basically to say what number the table is, the table row. So for example, row 1, row 2, row 3, and so on. And we've put here that the primary key is the column called ID. This is the column set up in row 2 of this table. So that you can practice, it's a good idea to learn how to delete the tables. I'm going to show you how to do this now in Workbench. So I go into the table this is a database, the table, and this is a table I want, and I right click and I go to drop table here. I'm going to review the SQL to show you. I'm going to choose that option. As you can see, drop table. This is a database and this is a table in it, and I'm going to press execute. And now, as you can see, I can press refresh here if needed, but I don't need to. The tables are all gone. Please subscribe to be notified of when more great videos and tutorials come out on this channel so you don't miss out.